More controversy has arisen in recent days about the issue of religion classes in schools. You'll remember the Minister for Education announcing lately that from September, in about half of the country's second-level schools, students who don't want to sit through religious instruction must be timetabled for another subject. You'll also remember that this directive was met with some consternation by schools who say they don't have the resources to make it happen. Well, now, the Teachers' Union of Ireland, at its annual convention last week, threatened to boycott this change. Atheist Ireland, for its part, is calling foul, saying the TUI is playing into the hands of the churches. On the line now, John McGowan, General Secretary of the TUI, and in studio, Michael Nugent, Chairperson of Atheist Ireland. John, first of all, explain this boycott plan.
Well, the simple fact of the matter, Sean, is that something was launched into the system by the department without any consultation whatsoever and without any provision for the necessary resources. So what we have said is that while we are perfectly prepared to speak to the department, and I would assume that the management bodies would equally wish to do that, about the provision of the required resources to implement the circular, we have said clearly that it cannot be implemented absent those resources. That is our issue. And we, at our Congress last week, we took a logical, sane decision not to attempt to do the impossible or to ask our members to do the impossible. So what we have said is that in the event that the resources are not provided, we will not be in a position to implement the circular, and we will we will instruct our members not even to attempt to do it. There is, quite frankly, no point attempting, as I say, to do the impossible.
OK, Michael Nugent, if the schools simply don't have the resources, what else are they to do?
Well, first of all, the schools have an obligation to respect the constitutional rights of students, and all that this directive is doing is recognising the existing rights. It's not adding anything new. It's saying that these courses have always been optional, that religion should be treated in the same way as other subjects, and that the schools, in the same way as if a student does French or German, there are two classes going on at the same time. If a student is in religion or something else, there should be two classes going on at the same time. So it's not a question of extra resources. The teachers are not going to be presented with, here's an extra class you have to do. What will happen is that the school has to ask parents and students before they put the timetable together what they want to do. Then the timetable is put together, and the teachers will be presented with a timetable where religion will be taught alongside some classes in the same way as French or German or biology or chemistry are taught alongside other classes. So I can't see how the teachers can justify saying, well, we're prepared to teach these students French while other students are doing German, but we're not prepared to teach these students French while other students are doing religion. It just doesn't make sense. And with regards to it coming out of the blue, that's just not true. The department announced this 2 years ago. And we have been talking with the department for Atheist Ireland since then. It's inconceivable that the department hadn't. We have freedom of information documents that show that the ETBI, which is the body for these schools, they're the ETB schools, the old VEC schools, that they have been talking to the department about it for years. This has not come out of the blue, and I have no notion why the TUI is saying that it has.
John?
Well, Michael is simply wrong, absolutely wrong. It's extraordinary that Atheist Ireland would have had, first of all, a consultation, and that the teacher unions, those with whom the department needs to consult, because it's our members who, one way or the other, will eventually be charged with implementing directives, that we haven't had negotiation. But the simple fact of the matter is that there has been no negotiation with us. As to ETBI, I do understand that ETBI had one cursory meeting with the department, cursory on the department's part, last September. There has not been anything of the normal consultation that would take place. That's the simple fact. The second thing is that there are deeds of trust, for example, in respect of community schools, which are covered by this circular as well. And those, I'm not making a comment one way or the other on the merits of what's in the deed of trust, but the deed of trust very explicitly says that there has to be religious instruction for a minimum of 2 hours per week for students whose parents choose to have them take religious instruction, or for students over the age of 18 who wish themselves to take it. So the fact of the matter also is that there was not discussion with the ACCS, and we have spoken to both management bodies in that regard. It isn't either, by the way, that we are attempting to frustrate a constitutional right. The constitutional right is already respected by schools. If a child, if you like, at the wish of parents, does not wish to be involved in religious instruction, they are not involved.
Yeah, what you've said there at the start is simply not true. The department did announce this 2 years ago at a conference, and we can get you the details of it on the department's website, and they specifically warned schools 2 years ago that they have to prepare for it. Now, that is on the record, and you're aware that it's on the record, or you should be aware that it's on the record.
Now, the
second thing...
Hold on to the respect there for a minute now, John. Just hold on there for a moment.
So the department has warned that it is inconceivable that the TUI wasn't aware of it, and for whatever reason you chose not to make it a priority, that's up to you. But now that it has been announced, you have to deal with it, and you cannot simply say that you will refuse to implement something that is put in place by the boards.
One other thing. What are the extra resources you and your members in schools would require to make this happen?
It's essentially a teaching resource that we require. In order to make this happen, and the people who do the timetable, in other words, the people who have to make the school run from day to day, it is those people in particular that we have consulted about this.
So if they put a timetable in place, will you implement it?
Excuse me, sorry, I didn't catch that.
If the schools manage to put a timetable in place within their existing resources, will you implement that timetable?
Sorry, Sean, was that you?
No.
No, excuse me. I wasn't quite sure why I was being, if you like, coloured in that manner. But Michael, if you could perhaps listen to me for a second rather than interrupting me, it would be helpful.
Well, now, John, hold on. I'm going to stop you there. You've had a fair old run at this, and you haven't exactly been brief in making your points.
I'm slightly at a disadvantage because I'm standing outside a public building here. But let's cut to the chase on this. First and foremost, if the resources are provided, and the resources are teaching resources, then obviously the circular will be implemented. We have made the point it is simply a matter of resources. The second thing is, so Sean, and it's hugely important that I be allowed to say this, at no point have we at all frustrated the constitutional rights of students, nor are we doing so now. The constitutional right of a student over the age of 18 or of the parent of a student under the age of 18 is absolutely respected in that they can be withdrawn from class. And in the same manner as happens elsewhere, the best that schools can do for them, they do for them at that point when they are withdrawn.
But John, you haven't told us what resources are needed to make it happen.
The point is that the resources that are required will depend on the resources already available to schools in terms of staffing. But additional staffing will be required. Now, Sean, I can't tell you precisely how many teachers or how many hours, but I do know, and this is from speaking to our members who are charged with doing timetables, that additional teaching resources in terms of a particular number of hours, presumably dependent on school size, will be required.
Michael?
Okay, well look, first of all, you have been breaching the rights of children and parents, both by implementing a curriculum that does breach their rights and also by having representatives on the boards of management that put those policies in place. The department has never said that those courses in religion are anything other than optional. And what the ETBs, with the cooperation of the unions, have done is they have misled parents into thinking that they are compulsory, and they have combined them with Catholic faith formation. And that is what is being corrected with this directive. It's not bringing in new rights, it is simply vindicating the rights that already exist.
Would you accept, Michael, that if for the sake of argument, and we wouldn't necessarily be in any way surprised were it to be the case that maybe half the children or maybe more decided to opt out, you can't just have them, going on into a library. The schools mightn't even have libraries. There may not be the physical space for them to go somewhere.
Exactly, and that's what this is addressing. What this is saying is up to now that is how it has been addressed. Yeah, but
you have to have alternative classes. You can't have alternative classes without teachers providing them.
But you could say the same about French and biology and German.
No, but they're there already.
Well, exactly, but there is nothing new being added. All that is being done is that the schools are being told, before you put the timetable together, you ask the parents and students what they want to do. Then you put the timetable together on the basis of those choices.
How practical is that, John?
It's not practical, and this is precisely the issue that we have raised with the department. In order to provide an additional option, which I think is what Michael is speaking of, you have to create option lines. To create option lines, you have to put alternatives against, if you like, in this case, religious instruction. But, Sean, I do need, again, very briefly, to address the issue that we are somehow colluding with the ETBI to frustrate the rights of children or of parents. It's not just untrue. It's absolutely unfair. In fact, what we are attempting to do, in spite of Michael's concern about it, is precisely to vindicate those rights, and more than that, to provide an alternative. We will do that if given the resources to do so. So there isn't here any ideological view being expressed, simply a practical consideration.
Last word, Michael Nugent.
Well, Atheist Ireland has constantly supported the rights of teachers to not be discriminated on grounds of religion, and we would hope that the TUI would stand with us in solidarity in terms of our rights to not be discriminated as parents and as students. If you do try to frustrate it, we will help parents to ensure that their rights are vindicated under this new directive.
Right, we're going to leave it there. Thank you both for joining us. That's Michael Nugent, chairperson of Atheist Ireland, in studio. My thanks also to John McGowan, General Secretary of the TUI, on the line. We're talking sport next.